Hello, everyone, and welcome back to JaianMusic Notes. Very excited about today's episode. It's finally happening. When I first conceptualized this show, there was an episode with a guest that had to happen. Today is one of those moments. I am so excited. We are going to be diving into the music of Terror in Residence, one of the most haunting and cinematic anime soundtracks. And joining me today is an exceptional guest. He's been on Anime Podcasters. He's a composer. He's an experimental musician. He's a sound designer, and he's a lover of this anime. He is someone that I am so glad to have on. Today, we are talking with Morgan Caswell. How are you, my friend?
I'm happy to be here, dude. It's been way too long.
I know. Dude, this episode, we're going over this soundtrack that I'm so excited. But before we do, I gotta do what I always do. Of course. And today's episode is sponsored by Laser Audio Technologies. If you want to elevate your sound production, Laser Audio has premium tools like Fram and Glow. Use code JaianMusic at checkout for 25% off, supporting our show, helping us bring you more in-depth music discussions. And all the money generated from that code goes straight back into the podcast, such as GoPro Kyo, who does all of the artwork for JaianMusic Notes. His link is in the description. Okay, before we talk about one of the greatest anime soundtracks of all times,
yeah.
Morgan, what's your love story with the music in Terror in Resonance? And tell us a little bit about yourself as well as a composer and anime music lover.
Okay, well, when it comes to origin story with this, well, as you know, my favorite, I know this is your favorite anime. Is it still your favorite anime? Is Terror in Resonance still number one?
We don't need to talk about this right now, but it's still there.
Okay,
it's
I understand.
There. It's still very much there.
But, you know, my favorite is Cowboy Bebop. And, you know, Terror in Resonance, when I have an artist that I really enjoy, I try to see their whole body of work. And Shinshiro Watanabe, who directed and created Cowboy Bebop, he also did Terror in Resonance. And so when I was doing the whole marathon of all of his stuff, actually when this show came out, that was the first Watanabe show that came out while I after I had seen everything he had done up to that point. And I was a big fan of him, and I was a big fan of Yoko Kanno, who's the composer, who we'll be talking more of course, through, because we have to.
We will.
But so I was a big fan of her work, being a huge Cowboy Bebop fan, and also a big Ghost in the Shell fan. Ghost in the Shell is one of my favorite franchises, and she did the music for Standalone Complex, and I think you can hear a bit of that in this, but mostly I find in this one it connects more to Wolf's Rain, which I don't know if you've seen Wolf's Rain, but I highly recommend it.
No, but I've covered songs from Wolf's Rain.
It's incredible. I highly recommend it, and there's some parallels. We'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, so for me, it was a huge Watanabe fan, and I've always loved the music of that that she made, and that all of those shows of that kind of era. Because this anime came out in the 2010s, but it still has a bit of that 2000s energy, which I really love. And when it comes to when it comes to me, well, you know, I studied cinema, and then I studied electroacoustics, and then I spend all these years just bridging the two. I do sound design and composing for audiovisual stuff. I've done some stuff for exhibition. I've done stuff for movies, short films and stuff like this. And I'm mostly into experimental art and ambient music and stuff like this. But I also have a long history of doing folk music and songwriting since I was young.
Yes, and everything that Morgan touches and provides on the internet as music that he wants to show to the audience will be linked in the description as well. And I encourage you to go check it all out. Let's get into this soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
As you mentioned, Morgan, composed by Yoko Kanno. My favorite work from her, 100%. When I was in Japan, I hunted every single music store I could find to try to find this music, this release, because the soundtrack is released in 2 albums, but was unable to find it. There's a lot to talk about here. So let's start with just very simply. The soundtrack here is sparse. There's a long stretches of time where we don't really have music, and we just have like ambience and dialogue. And then Yoko Kanno really does a good job of showing like trauma and like I'm thinking about like that guitar riff when the Nine has those flashbacks when he was when he was an infant and everything, and when he escaped and all that stuff. Like, there's so many layers to this music. Like, where do you want to like begin? Because you really have an ear for this soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, so the thing about this is, compared to her other work, if you're comparing it to a Bebop or a Ghost in the Shell, those soundtracks are like extremely long. They have music playing all the time and different tracks, right? But in this one, it's very different in that it's much smaller in that there's less music, but there's a lot of motif work. There's more than those other scores, because it's a lot of music coming back, but maybe with a couple different arrangements or maybe a different instrument. Like sometimes there's tracks where it'll use guitar, and there's a lot of that going on in this one, where it keeps its themes very closely in a way that is unique to this one in her body of work, which is why I think it resembles Wolf's Rain the most, because it has a softer palette, and it also it sits very close to each other. Where you listen to Bebop and there's like 6 albums of soundtrack, and you get full jams of different music and stuff. Here it's very connected.
It's a jam section.
Yeah, here it's everything is very connected, and there's only one track that I consider to be jammy, which for her is very, very rare.
Which track do you consider to be jammy?
It's the final track on the soundtrack release. Let me pull up the title.
Yeah, of course.
I don't have. Okay. It's also these names. I can't do the.
These names. Some of them are straight up Icelandic, and some of them are straight up like
Saga.
numbers and letters.
Saga.
Saga. Okay, tell me about Saga.
No, yeah. So the thing about Saga is that it's pretty interesting, because it essentially it sounds like a jazz warm up session. And the rest of the soundtrack doesn't sound like this. But the interesting thing is, it starts off and it has those. It feels like you're listening to a band with a lot of chemistry, kind of getting that chemistry back. You have those drums that are a bit jazz adjacent. You have very careful piano. You have a bass that sounds like it could be upright. And I could be wrong about that, but it really has that kind of trio, sort of like a jazz trio, just doing a sound check sound. But the thing is, as the piece continues, they start adding all of those elements that are in the rest of the soundtrack. So that's a really interesting thing, where it starts off and I'm like, oh, finally, after listening to the whole OST, I was like, oh, this is more classic Yoko Kanno. But then essentially, like it becomes Terror in Resonance as the piece kind of continues. So that's a bit of an interesting one, where it stands out in the soundtrack for Terror, I find.
No, I completely know what you mean. That one, as far as I remember, it just felt like almost like a warm up. Like, I wonder if it was one of the first songs.
No idea.
But it just definitely had that warm up jammy, like all recorded in like one room type of vibe to me. But I really liked it.
Oh, yeah,
I really liked it. No, it's absolutely fantastic. Okay. Is there a song you want to start with? Typically, I start with the opening, but there are no rules to play by tonight, my friend. We have the whole field. We have these like 11 tracks to get over. We'll go anywhere we want to, like, really. And
when you say you usually start with the opening, are you talking about like Trigger, like the opening of the show?
Of course.
I think
Trigger.
I think we should start with the opening, because it is the most different piece of music in that the soundtrack doesn't sound like this. So I think it would be good to do that one.
I love this track because we have like a mix of electronics, but like We also have some guitar. The panning is wide open. We don't go too crazy. You know, I think about every like Death Note, what's up the people, opening metal. Like, no, we soft here, but like this is a harsh anime. Like, let's not kid ourselves. This anime is extremely intense. It's definitely on some blacklists. And we have a nice build throughout.
Yeah.
It's very melodic, very soft, ambient, but still driving with that like kick drum. Like, I'm really loving how complete.
Yeah, it's interesting because it does kind of have all of the pieces to be just like a techno banger, but really, but it does so as calmly as it can, which is really kind of nice. It feels to me like, have you ever seen the anime Technolize, but with an X? But
I've heard of it.
It's really good. And the opening, I've only seen these two openings as kind of like light side, dark side. Like Technolize is like this, but in a dungeon. And this is kind of like a very pretty version, I find. You know, they're very different, but they both have that like thumping beat and kind of old school 90s techno influence, but but this one is like the pretty and the other one is like industrial. So but anyways, that's something to check out. But this one is it's quite nice, and I think it's interesting how the palette is completely different from the actual score of the show, but in a good way. In a good way.
Oh my God, yes. This is night and day.
Yeah.
In
because
in a complimentary
something that you
way,
do get
honestly.
out of this with the kind of like technology, the sort of like the kind of like electronic influences, you do get a very that, and the melodic tension gives it a very it shows that this is an anime that's all about mystery and misdirection and kind of like you feel like, oh, someone's getting played, something's happening behind the scenes. It very much gives away the themes of the show, just with the sound of it and the lyrics as well, which are very poetic. And this show is very, very poetic how they treat flashbacks and all that.
Oh my gosh, there's so many metaphors and references and callbacks, and there's a push and pull and everything. I'm a big fan of the arpeggiator in this one. That sort of sequence.
I'm a sucker for this and anything really, but here it works. It works.
It works very well. And I think the other thing, the actual like opening sequence mirrored to this soundtrack works perfectly. I feel like you can like tell there's like an inner conflict. There's like isolation. The word, the title here, trigger. You know, one of the quotes in Terror and Resonance is "pull a trigger on this world" or something. I'm paraphrasing, but it's that. So we open with trigger itself, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I think there's like that's a poetic reference, you know.
The opening, it's actually one that is a bit underrated because I know that like I forget, even myself, I forget about it, but in the context of the show, I do think it adds a nice flavor on top of what is really nice and very direct and focused soundtrack overall. This adds just a nice extra palette that makes because a lot of the music is very soft, so this adds an intensity that helps because the show is not just soft, nice, fluffy things all the time, and I think this opening, it's smart that it kind of goes in that direction because, as you said, there's a lot of sound design and stuff like this in the show, a lot of moments where there's no music. So this opening plus because there's not a lot of like action music in this show, like unlike Bebop, you know, there's not a lot of action music, and I find that like this opening helps kind of like give a musical tone to that part of the show, which is crucial.
Fully agreed with you on that. That's like a complete point on it. Okay. Interesting takes on Trigger, as I was expecting. What do you think of? So I think Yoko Kanno is really, like, how can I say this? One of the most complete composers to ever compose for anime. If you listen to the soundtrack of Terror and Resonance, there are actual moments where I like, you know what? Like, you and I both did an electroacoustic degree. Like, there is electroacoustic music here. It's brief, but it's there. There's ambient music. It's brief, but it's there. There's rock moments. There's jazzy moments. And what I really like about, like, just to put a bow on Trigger, is the combination of genres, but in a very discreet way. Like, this is techno, but it's got a bit of a rocky, drivey little energy. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And this is something, if you listen to her work on the Ghost in the Shell soundtrack, you get a lot of that. You get what is essentially one genre of music, but performed, but it has the arrangement of like a rock band or a jazz band. It's not similar to old Final Fantasy games where it sounds like operatic, but really it's rock music, but arranged to be something operatic. She does a lot of this as well. You can see that her time in like jazz bands and stuff like this is a very big like filter for her music. So definitely there's a bit of ideas being pulled from different genres, and that's one of the main things that she does very well, is that she pulls all of the ideas and stuff from different genres and is able to focus them into something cohesive that makes sense and that works very well with the rest of the music. But I think Trigger. I'm not sure. Did she do Trigger as well? Okay, yeah, because she does usually do this, because she did do Stray, the opening of Wolf's Rain, but I think she was co-composer.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yoko Kanno composed the opening theme song for the anime Terran Resonance titled Trigger. Yuki Ozaki of Galilei performed the song. Kanno also composed the soundtrack for the series, which was released before the anime aired in 2014. Very interesting point. If I'm not mistaken, the soundtrack for this anime dropped a day before the actual anime was released. From what I recall on like old YouTube videos. Not a usual thing typically.
No, I don't think so. But I think because it's Watanabe and Yoko Kanno collaborating again, they've done many times. Like, she's worked on, I think, Kids on the Slope, and I know she did a track. Maybe I don't remember which one for Space Dandy. I think she did something there, but I'll have to check that. But them collaborating again. I think they knew there was an interest there, so I think they kind of released that as its own work, because a lot of anime soundtracks, like I wait for a long time before I get to listen to them officially. So this was definitely something that they knew people wanted to hear, and honestly, like, it set you in the space. I remember before the show came out, I listened to a couple of the key songs that had come out, like Vaughn, of course, like Vaughn and Burden and NC-17, and so we'll talk, but I listened to that before, and it got me in the mood. It got me into the mood of the show. Like, I was already sold. Just hearing the music, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in.
Yes, I'm absolutely in agreement with you on that. Okay, that's a great start there.
Yep.
I want to go. Let's do all the ones with vocals first, maybe. Okay. That's how I'm feeling right now.
Sure,
at least for this next one. I'm not saying for the rest, but at least for this next one. A song that I absolutely love, and the scene is so beautiful, and
I think I know where we're going.
Is the track Is.
Of course.
This track is very, very, very special to me. Lisa questioning 12 on that motorcycle after being saved by 12. Are you going to blow it all up? Are you going to destroy the entire planet? Like, is that what you do?
Yeah.
12 laughing hysterically and Lisa laughing alongside him as they ride that motorcycle, and she goes, "This is the first time I've laughed so like this in a very long time." And this song has so many beautiful elements to it, and I just want to point a key moment here out, and then I'll let you cook wherever you want to do whatever recipe.
No, please go ahead.
When they bring up harmonies and we get actual vocal harmonies at the same time, beautiful. and this one features pop, etc. What are your thoughts here, Morgan?
Oh well, I mean, for starters, I will mention that the scene in question. This is that scene for this show. This is the scene. This is the one that has kept on. If people remember Terror in Resonance, they remember this scene, and I think the music is actually incredibly crucial to that. Like,
Very.
The whole so the harmonies. Yeah, so. The main thing that really makes it so satisfying to listen to is the harmonies, and specifically when it starts, you only have that clean guitar and the vocals, but you specifically have the lead vocal and the clean guitar. It's very stripped down, it's very simple, but when the harmonies come in, they wrap around you like a warm blanket, and they come from all directions. You're just listening to it. It's very center, very focused, and the harmonies come, and you're like, whoa. And it's just a really good case of just very simple but smart mixing, just smart spatialization and just being like, okay, look, it's basically just a simple guitar vocal song until it isn't. And when it's not, it kind of explodes upwards, right? And the instrumentation, it starts doing, it starts adding all of those Terror in Resonance elements, the bit of the noise, a bit of the strings, and all of this later on. But just that build that they make their way to it, very slow, very calculated. It takes its time and it knows when to reveal itself, and that's the best thing I can say about this specific piece.
Here's some fun trivia for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
So I usually I'll listen to the soundtrack and then I'll just have a few key points here, but this one is very special to me, so I dove deeper than I typically do. I looked up, what does "is" mean? Is that's such a weird title, but there has to be a hidden meaning. Do you know? Obviously, we have to talk about this a little bit. The music in Terror in Resonance has, and Terror in Resonance itself has a lot of Icelandic references, which is literally why I don't know if I told you, Morgan. I'm going to Iceland.
That's
in 2024.
Amazing.
In 2025, pardon me. And Terror in Resonance is the reason why I'm going to Iceland. Is means ice in Icelandic.
That's crazy. I did not know this.
Right?
No.
Right?
I mean,
what do you think of that? Now that you know that and listening back to the song.
I find it fits especially for the one passage where God, I don't remember I don't know which instrument, but the second time when the harmonies go upwards really strongly, and then you have that kind of do 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 do, right, that whole part. That part is the highlight for me. It's incredible, and that's also the scene in the show where she's the camera's panning and she's looking upwards, and but anyways, so that part there, I find that it does have a very kind of icy sound. It kind of has that that.
Yes.
I could see the icicles, in the visual. So
music from a cold land.
It works. It definitely works.
Oh, what was 9 listening to the whole time?
Oh, yeah.
Music from a cold land.
Yeah, and we'll for sure mention once we get to the very specific tracks.
I think that one will have to be last, in my opinion. Unless you say otherwise, but that's where I was feeling it so far. Do you have a pick? Do you have a song you want to go to next, Morgan?
One that I want to go to next? Ooh. I mean, I say we can go right into NC-17.
Yes, I like this. NC-17.
Okay. Yeah, a big highlight for me.
Humongous highlight.
All right, yeah, I could listen to this all day. To be honest, I could just go through the whole song. But just a great track, and one that there's a couple pieces in the soundtrack where there halves, and this is one where you have that very steady piano motif, and then it kind of evolves more so into a 2000s alternative rock track. And but I really like that, and I really like how when the drums enter, usually in music like this, the drums, they add a stability. A lot of people, in alternative rock, people will you'll add in you'll have no drums, and then drums will come in and they sort of center everything afterwards. But here, the drums, they add tension. Instead of making it more steady, they actually kind of make things more tense in the middle part of the song. And I think that works really in the favor of the music. It adds an extra flavor that's a bit surprising when you start the track and you get very steady piano, just keeps going. And to have that kind of like, sort of like, very tense alt rock finish is really good. And this is one of the pieces of music that is it's giving very much Sigur Rós. And we didn't talk about them yet.
Morgan,
but
all Sigur Rós talk, and I'll let you break the tie on this. I literally want to do a whole other podcast on the Sigur Rós.
Okay, that's very fair.
Are you okay with that? We can reference it, but like we'll definitely do a Sigur Rós v Terror in Resonance like talk, like for sure. That's like an episode that it will happen.
Okay, sounds good. I can't. That's the thing is, I couldn't at least once because it's so present. No,
of course, I completely agree with you. It's got that like, if I may, that post rock, like especially with like when we get into those guitars and those drums, like and that snare snapping with the guitar, like ta ta ta, ta ta ta. Ta ta ta, and it's got that nice like heavy like percussion, distorted guitars, like I said, and it's intense. And the pulsating rhythm mirrors like that urgency and tension as the cops are trying to figure out like what's going on, and then that data leak of them being hacked, like. It was perfectly scored to the image, but it's one of those it's one of those songs that's perfectly scored to the image that I could also listen to independently of the image and still like jam out to. And very interestingly enough, this song plays right before Is. In the timeline of the series.
That's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know, the words are not coming, but
I know what you mean.
It's all rushing back to me,
if I may,
all coming back.
Why do you think the song is titled NC-17?
That's an excellent question. I would love to give you an actual proper answer, but I mean, I've been listening to the OST, but you know what I haven't done is I haven't rewatched the show. I've only rewatched specific episodes for.
I completely understand.
So
I was
I'm actually really
episodes.
Uncertain as to the title.
I will tell you right now.
Go ahead.
No children under 17.
Fair.
It makes reference to the rating.
I mean, that makes sense, you know?
Isn't that like hidden gems in the song titles? I love it. I love
the song titles are they feel very deliberate.
I love this. I love how like some like random little, you know what?
Yeah.
Well, throw it in the soundtrack. I mean, why not?
I much prefer this over just like, you know, character stands in shopping mall, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly.
You know, I always enjoy when you kind of add a little bit of a mood
completely agree
to the titling. That's great. That's great.
Where do we go from here? We
can go anywhere.
I would like to go to Fugl. Fugl. This song, I'm just gonna talk right away because it just means so much. This song is like pure emotion. Very simple melody, just kind of plucking at you.
Yeah.
But it plays in those slow-mo moments where 12 jumps in the water and Lisa's just looking at him like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
What is that smile? And it's nicely sustained by those strings, and you know that melody just sits in the pocket ever so delicately, and it's got that cinematic but still cold feeling to it. I just find it so well constructed and so simple harmonically and melodically, but all together. Once again, a song that you can independently listen to without the image, and it still sits perfectly in your headphones.
Yeah, and it's true. And the thing is, what this piece does very successfully, and what I think it kind of shows what the rest of the soundtrack does really well, is that it's very pretty, and it does have those cinematic strings, those very big strings, but there's a darkness to it. it's very pretty, but it doesn't hide that. Well, it actually does hide. There's a bit of, as the piece, especially in the later parts of this one, the last like 40 seconds or so, you can hear that there's a bit of a melancholy to it. It's not just pretty. It's very, there's a lot of melancholy. It's a bit dark. It's sad, but I think this is a reflection of the characters a bit, where there's a sadness to it. There's of course all the, their trauma and all this, but the way that they, the way that their attitude is towards it, they're not like just pure sadness. These characters, they have life to them, and I think the music does that. Is it brings a sort of sad vibe, but it makes sure that it's still beautiful, it's still pretty, and there's a lot of life to the music. It's not just pure, just like sadness and depression. It's above this, and this might sound like a lot of like a bit too much to read into in a piece of music like this, but
I don't think it's too much to read into. I think you're completely on the
but I do think that's the intention with a piece like this. It's just as you said, simple melodically, sure. It has to do, this piece of music has to do what I was saying. Like, it has to sort of walk that line to make sure that when you're watching it, it doesn't fall too much in the realm of like, it's not too cheesy or it's not too wallowing in depression. It needs to straddle that line and being like appropriately melancholic. And I think it does a great job, of course.
Completely agree with you on that. And I think that its melody is perfect for those like reflective inner struggle, inner thought moments. What I was referring to earlier, like Lisa seeing 12 jump in the pool and everything. And amidst the chaos of Terror Resonance, this is absolutely one of the most what's the word I'm looking for? Not drifting, but calming songs and serene songs of the whole soundtrack. Because, we're talking about an anime where, like, we're going to blow stuff up, to put it very simple. But this gives it, like, we reach that, like, deeper, calmer, inner character, getting to know you type of vibe, which I find that this piece does so well. And, Morgan, what do you think Fugl means?
I think I see the trend, but I'm actually very happy I did not look into the title semantics. It's something I feel like I could have done, but I'm very happy I get to learn right here live.
It means bird.
Okay.
And what's the cover of the soundtrack?
It's a
bird.
Oh no, it's not a dog. Damn, it's crazy.
It's great. I love these like little references. Like
no, they're great. It's
really
great,
good.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have some for every single one. I just want to put it out there, but like most of them do. I just want to set expectations.
Because the next track, I'm gonna be like, Jaian. So what does this one mean?
What does Kaplark mean, Jaian?
But yes,
absolutely. All right. Give me. I'll let you choose the next one there.
Which one should we do? Let me look here. Let's do Walt.
Walt. Great choice. Suspenseful, elegant. It's definitely a Walt with that rhythm. And I just remember I hear this song and I know the exact moment. First song at the start of episode 2, where the news report is there and we're talking about, okay, this explosion happened. Here's what's going on. And the song plays as that a news report is being broadcast. But I think that we were talking about melancholic in the last one with Fugl. To me, Walt has this sort of somber undertone.
Yeah, well, this one, I'm a sucker for a good kind of like start and stop kind of intro, where in this track, starts playing, stops, starts again, stops, but it's when it finally gets going, it's like you can't stop the ride, and but I love this, and just the thing too is, even when the strings come in, it still stops a little bit. It still is like, oh look, you thought you made it, but we still want to wait a little bit, and it creates this a bit of tension there, but it's not as much melodic tension, and it's really all rhythmic. It's all in the rhythm of it. And how I would describe the sort of the sound of it, which I think is really cool, is this is the piece on the soundtrack where the piano and the strings, they feel like they're melted together. It's interconnected in just the strongest way. It's just they become one. It's just the piano and strings, melodically they're completing each other. There's only two main parts to the piece of music, and they're just completing each other. And I think that's something that's really strong about this piece in particular, where a lot of the other pieces, they like we mentioned, God, what's that Saga, where in that piece, like the strings comes in and then that overtakes the piece a little bit.
Yeah, it does like go off from there. Yes.
Yeah, here it doesn't do this. Here the strings and the piano, like, because a lot of pieces of music in the soundtrack, the strings, when they get introduced, they kind of overtake everything. Here this is not the case. The strings, they sit right with it and they play together. They combine together in the piece, and I think that's what makes this one enjoyable and just a slight surprise. It stops it from being, just because there's a lot of piano string pieces in the soundtrack, but this one has that to it where they go toe to toe together, and I think it helps this track stand out a bit.
Completely agree with you on that. A track that has probably my favorite rhythm in the entire soundtrack.
Yeah.
I really like just that push and pull, that stop and go that goes on. And waltz are like pieces of music that I don't very often touch as a anime sound cover channel. I did a little bit here and there, like when we were doing electroacoustic studies in those music theory classes. But why did you put a waltz there is what I'm questioning. Like, it works, but like it's still not a musical concept that I ever reach for,
Right. But I think it doesn't pull that much from it, just because it doesn't have a lot of the rhythm that you would expect from it. I think it has.
Yeah, well, I think I'm making more reference to like those tempo changes, like definitely, like when we like get off that like like we just kind of slow down, like like, okay, what's going on here? We're slowing it down, and this is all being played on like panning shots of like building rubbles and stuff like that,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely. Look, it's an artistic choice that someone had to make to play the music at those moments. It's something where it stands enough. It has enough of the palette of the rest of the music that it's not like you're listening to like an actual sort of like slow dance music, classical dance music. It's not. It doesn't go into that realm. So I think it's more of a thematic connection, I think, that they made with
fair enough,
with the title than an actual strict musical.
And do you know why the title is waltz?
Why is it?
Because it's a waltz.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. I didn't see that. I didn't see that one coming. That's crazy.
He's like, yo, is it because the age rating is different in another country?
It's like, waltz actually translates to blowing up buildings. The more you know.
So, I think this is a good place to end the episode. We have a lot more.
Oh wow, really? Okay. But we didn't even talk about Blessed.
Yeah, we're gonna be hitting Blessed on the next episode.
Wait,
yeah.
What? Dang.
Yeah. You're gonna have to wait a whole week. Oh
wow.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes. These episodes are weekly, but if you want them to be weekly, I have to make it work for them to be weekly.
Yeah, fair.
So, make sure to subscribe to JaianMusic Notes in your favorite podcatcher. Make sure to follow me at JaianMusic on social media. Use code JaianMusic to get 25% off any plugin purchase on Laser.io for Laser Audio Technologies. All of that is linked in the description, as well as GoPro Keo, who does all of the artwork for the podcast. Morgan, where can people find you? Plug away.
I mean, yeah, people can find me. You can find me on Instagram, Morgan the Alien. And yeah, you can find me there mostly, to be honest. You can write me if you're curious about work that I do or anything like this. I eventually, one day, I will revive my social media to include all of my works. But unfortunately, most of it is in films and stuff that I do not control. I don't own the rights to, so I don't have the rights to share a lot of that stuff. But I so it is what it is. But thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. I'm always happy to be here.
Oh, you've been a delicious guest to have on. I'm gonna say it. You've been fantastic, and Morgan and I are gonna be talking to each other in the next 5 seconds. But we will see you next week. So for myself and Morgan, this has been another episode of JaianMusic Notes. Bye, everyone.